The following program contains graphic material, including offensive language. Viewer.
No. What would you say to him? Stop being a bully. Stop belittling people that look differently, act differently, love differently. Who the hell are you? Stop. Stop threatening people. Stop being so coercive. It's not power over. Power, dominance, aggressive, fear-mongering. We lived this with the Briggs Initiative in the 1970s. We've lived this in California with Prop 187. Look what Abbott is doing. Abbott's talking about eliminating a fundamental right for people, regardless of their immigration status, to get an education. We were debating that in the 1990s. Watch that space. Watch that space. That was the Doe decision. They're going to come after that next. This is a real moment for diverse communities. And it's not just, again, DeSantis, it's Abbott, it's Kentucky, it's South Dakota. You go down the list, these red states, there's a ruthlessness.
This is Gavin Newsom speaking with Fox LA reporter Alex Michelson, who, by the way, is the go-to source for all things Newsom in California, so give Alex a follow. And Newsom here is continuing his takedown of red state governors like Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott, who've risen to prominence by doing what all Republicans do when they want attention. They attack the vulnerable. For example, most recently, DeSantis passed the Don't Say Gay law, using intentionally vague language to forbid teachers from acknowledging the existence of LGBT Americans. And just a couple of things on that bill. Critics claim that it's teaching little kids about sex while they're too young. Sex education is already banned in Florida until 5th grade, meaning that this bill had nothing to do with protecting young students from discussions on sex and has everything to do with pretending gay people don't exist. And second, critics say that the law is only intended for kids in grades K through 3, but that's not at all what the law actually says. In reality, it says, quote, classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3 or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate. In other words, completely and intentionally vague so that it encompasses all grades, not just K through 3. The point is a chilling effect intended to stop people from acknowledging that gay people exist. That is the legislation that Ron DeSantis is known for. That's DeSantis' priority in Florida, making life hell for the most vulnerable among us. And before you say, well, California politicians are just as bad, let's take a look at one of the very latest pieces of legislation advanced by Newsom and California Democrats.
On my first day in office, I signed an executive order to put California on the path towards creating our own prescription drugs. And now it's happening. California is going to make its own insulin. Nothing epitomizes market failures more than the cost of insulin. Many Americans experience out-of-pocket costs anywhere from $300 to $500 per month for this life-saving drug. California is now taking matters into our own hands. The budget I just signed sets aside $100 million so that we can contract to make our own insulin at a cheaper price, close to at cost, and to make it available to all. $50 million will go towards the development of low-cost insulin products, and an additional $50 million will go towards a California-based insulin manufacturing facility that will provide new, high-paying jobs and a stronger supply chain for the drug. Because in California, we know people should not go into debt to receive life-saving medication.
So you can have a government that targets LGBT Americans to ensure that their existence is never acknowledged, or you can have a government that moves to use its budget surplus to manufacture insulin nearly at cost. Take all the time you need with that one. Here's the simple truth. The reason that Republicans rely solely on attacking the vulnerable is because it's their only strategy to train your attention away from their wholly unpopular platform. So if they can convince you that a gay teacher is grooming your poor unsuspecting child, a notion that is so aggressively misguided, then they're hoping that that'll distract you from the fact that what they are fighting for is a complete ban on abortion, even in cases of rape or incest. They're fighting for more weapons to flood the streets, even as shootings surge across this country. They're fighting to strip Americans of voting rights and to be able to undermine elections because they can't accept the fact that they lose. They're fighting to take away your health care. They're fighting to eliminate Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. They're fighting to cut taxes for millionaires and billionaires. They're fighting to protect oil companies and to deny the effects of climate change. Quite literally, no part of that agenda is even mildly popular with the majority of Americans. And so they need to vilify someone to ensure that you're distracted. They don't care whose life they have to destroy in their own desperate pursuit of power. So good on Newsom for for calling him out, and hopefully more and more Democrats recognize that these are fights that we should not only take on, but win. We are on the right side of these issues, so the last thing we should be doing is waving a white flag, or just as bad, seeking compromise with a party of extremists. Our elected officials on the left should see these attacks on civil rights, on humanity, on democracy, and recognize that the only move here is to fight and win. To see more videos like this, click the subscribe button right here on this screen. And to support my work beyond that, check out my podcast, No Lie with Brian Tyler Cohen, where I cover the week's most important stories and interview the biggest players in the world of politics, including President Biden, Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, Katie Porter, and so many more. The link is also right here on this screen. And finally, to take action yourself and sign petitions on the most important issues, go to briantylercohen.com/petition.
Hey everybody, it's Jeff. Hope everybody's doing okay today. Nice day here in Maine. Sunny and with a little breeze. That's nice, not too hot. Well, yesterday the Senate decided not to help veterans. Mostly the Republicans, of course. After they had passed a CHIPS bill with 14 Republicans supporting it, which was a shock to most people, that they were able to do this, work with Democrats on something, which is something that I applaud. It will bring jobs into this country. It'll invest in this country to build things that we're paying like China to do for us, and we need to start making it easier for companies to build stuff, and not have to pay through the nose to ship it here, which is one of the reasons why they had to make this bill. But it was a shock that people actually figured this was a good thing, and I mean, yeah, there were some Republicans that voted against it. These are the people that are of the same mind that Democrats should never succeed at anything, right? But 14 of them decided that it was a good thing. They just couldn't afford to let this go by, so they voted for it. So that's good. I mean, that's a step in the right direction as far as electronics business is concerned. We could start making our own solar panels here and stuff like that. It'll be nice. I mean, not to have to depend on China to make these things for us. I mean, we need jobs in this country, and good-paying jobs. And this is a step in that direction to go down that avenue, so that way people can have some good-paying jobs and contribute into the economy. But the second bill wasn't so lucky. All the Republicans sided against it, and so it died. And Jon Stewart was pretty upset about it, and he came out, in an interview or something, and to a reporter, and he was really, really upset. And what he said was true. The veterans, even after they come home from war, they're still sacrificing themselves for this country. And part of it is the idea that they have to give up of themselves for, I don't know, political reasons, I guess, if you want to call it that. it's a joke. I mean, it's really, well, I'm going to say it's a joke. It's not funny for the veterans who have to go through this, but they were trying to pass an funding aid for the veterans who spent all those years overseas fighting in the Middle East, and they were staying at camps where they had these burn pits. Now, what these burn pits is they would just dump everything, you know, any waste in there, including toxic waste, into these pits, and they'd set it on fire and they'd burn it. Okay, well, here's the thing that people still don't understand about waste. Even if you burn waste, like if you burn garbage, you're not really getting rid of the waste. You're just forming it into a different form of waste, which goes up into the air and comes down in toxic residue. So you're not actually getting rid of the waste. You're just making it into something more harmful, which is what was going on these bases. They would dig a hole, they'd put all the stuff in there, and they'd burn it, and then it was coming down on top of the people in the base, you know, like in little ashes and stuff like that. And these things were, you know, getting in their face, getting in their eyes and stuff like that, and possibly even in their food. And for years, that's what they were doing over there. And so now we got some 3 million veterans here that are all suffering with cancer because of the time spent over there breathing in all of that stuff. And so they come home, and now they're you know, their condition is really bad, and the cost for treating these veterans through the VA system is pretty steep. Okay. And so what they were trying to do was pass a bill that would give veterans access to outside help in the civilian market, you know, and paying through them, you know what I'm saying, where they'd get coverage for their help for the veterans, all right? Because obviously the VA comes up short when it comes to taking care of things like cancer and stuff like that, I guess. I don't know. But in this situation here, they needed to have some outside help for the veterans so they could get treated for this. And being that there's, I mean, like I said, 3 million, at least 3 million sick with this, you would think it would be a no-brainer, right? That who the hell would be against veterans getting help, really? That apparently the Republicans are. And with all their bluster about supporting America, being USA, you know, patriotic and all that shit, here was their chance to prove their words, and they simply turned their backs on it and walked away. How many times do we have to expose these people for what they are? That they're liars. When they say they're patriotic, they are not patriotic people. They don't know what patriotism is. They think patriotism is about them getting their way. And the problem is with getting their way is that it also it inevitably hurts everybody else. And when you're doing something that hurts everybody else, that's not patriotic, that's selfishness. And so what happened here was the Republicans had their chance to stand up on their morals or supposed morals. And once again, they proved their inability to stand behind people who sacrificed for them in more ways than one. And like I said before, the veterans are never done sacrificing. Even after they come home from war, they're still sacrificing for the country, for whatever. While every time they go someplace, some Republican will come to their face and say, oh, thank you for your service, and yet they'll turn around and support some fucking asshole. They'll turn around and just say no. Say no to helping a veteran. Okay? Like Susan Collins, Maine senator here. And I don't know what to say except that why we have veterans still who will vote for Republican, and I don't know how many in this country do, but I know they're out there. But these people really ought to wake up and understand these characters are not on your side. Okay, they never were. They only need you when they want you to fight their war. But when you come home, you know, hey, you're on your own. It's kind of like the issue with abortion. They love the fetus, right? But they hate the baby. They don't want to help the baby for health care, for food, for education. You know, they don't want to do anything that helps the baby to grow up into a contributing citizen to the country. They don't want to do a goddamn thing with that. They only care about the fucking fetus. And like I said, when it comes to the veterans, the same train of thought applies. They care about the guy going over there to fight for them, but after the war's over and they all come home, they don't know you. Okay, you know, go away. We don't want you here. You know, you're costing us money. It's like, well, if you don't invest in peacetime, then how can you possibly wage war anywhere? Because, you know, if you don't have, you know, wars are not just funding for tanks and military stuff and all that. A war is also about funding for the aftermath, for the soldiers that survive and need help. You got to have money put aside for that too. And we don't often do that in this country. Okay, yeah, we set up the VA system years ago, but even during the Vietnam War, the VA system was sadly underfunded. Okay, and a lot of these places were overwhelmed with veterans coming back from Vietnam, and they weren't getting the care they needed. That hadn't changed for a long time. Okay, and apparently it still hasn't. Really, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, yes, the VA system has improved since then, but it's still not funded properly to take care of the aftermath of wars. And that's the problem. That's why I say we need to invest in peacetime as well. Because if we don't, we're going to have this situation where veterans are coming back with illnesses related to a war, and the government having to flip the bill even more when they should have done it in the first place when the war started. But here, you know what I'm saying? So this is, like I said, this is where they leave everybody out hanging out to dry. Okay, and as a veteran myself, thankfully my needs are not as great as most veterans are, but I still get aid in a lot of different ways, you know, to take care of my illnesses and stuff that I have. But a lot of veterans need substantially more help than what I'm getting because of the fact that they came back with you know, cancer and stuff like that, which is a very expensive thing to treat. Okay, and you know, the people that work at the VA, the doctors and stuff, would like to be able to do more for the veterans, but because they're government employees, you know, they can't really reach out beyond their means to do so. So we have to have the government add things into the bills and stuff like that to give money to these veterans, so they can get help from regular hospitals. Okay. I just feel like, you know, how can a Republican not understand that? It's a very simple thing to understand. It doesn't require rocket science to figure out. And some of these Republicans probably had sons and daughters who were veterans that came back, may not be sick with cancer, but, you know, are getting help from the VA system. And yet, here they go and vote and do this, basically slap every veteran in the face here. And, you know, and it's not right. It's just not right. I mean, we're supposed to be, what do they say, America first? Okay, they say that's what Republicans like to say, America first. Well, how is this America first? How is turning your back on veterans America first? Okay, it was America first when it came to investing in chips, right? You know, building electronics stuff here, you know, solar panels and microchips and stuff like that. You know, it was America first when it came to business, but when it comes to healthcare, no. It's, you know, we're not here. America's not there for you when it comes to healthcare. And it's the same for the civilians as well as veterans. You know, civilians could get much better healthcare than they get, okay, through a system very much like the VA, but just funded more than the VA gets. You know, I mean, it would benefit a great many Americans that are really on poverty level to have a government-funded healthcare system for them. I mean, they're Americans, right? They deserve to have the same rights that veterans get. We're all in the same damn boat here. I mean, Jesus Christ, what the hell's the problem? You know, if you're a citizen, you know, I mean, if you ever actually sat down and thought about what do you get as a citizen of the United States? You know, you know, what special things do you get when you come into this country to become a citizen? It just seems to me like, you know, if people are supposed to be so happy in this country, as a citizen, you would probably say, oh, we got this and they don't over there in that country, or you know what I'm saying? But if you made like a list of things that you can do in this country and a list of things you can do in this country of your choice, I think you're going to probably find that America ain't too different from other countries, you know, free nations, I guess you could call them. So, as an American, I guess, and we see these other countries doing better with their healthcare system, as an American, we'd say, well, how come we can't do that here? I mean, if this is a great country and we're supposed to want to stay here and all that and be American, then why can't you pick up the good things that other countries are doing and make them our own, you know? What's the problem? Well, the problem is you got too many fat cats out there that love the way the system is, okay? And they've made their fortunes on exploiting the way that system is. And because there's so many of them out there doing this, and because of our the nature of our capitalist system we got here, it becomes nearly impossible to make a change there unless some miracle or some catastrophe happens where people are snapped back into, you know, like what happened on 9/11, it snapped us all back into being Americans, unified, and no matter if you were Republican or Democrat. Remember that? For those of you that, you know, lived through that time, we were all American then. Didn't matter what political stripe we were. We were all intent on trying to help. Some catastrophe like that would have to happen, I think, in a lot of cases, in order for this country to say, okay, universal health care, government-funded health care, whatever you want to call it. Okay, everybody gets something. Right now, people are bitter. They're angry with the government because we had 4 years of hell with Donald Trump. He left this country with a $20 trillion debt, okay, and we're trying to pay that down. And while we're trying to pay it down, the Republicans are screaming, oh, the Democrats are big spenders, okay? Well, we're trying to fix the damage Trump caused. Yes, we're going to have to spend in order to accomplish that. But you don't blame the man that's trying to do that. You blame the fucking asshole that was in there before who spent us into a fucking debt. Okay, that's what you do. It's Trump's fault that we have to take all these steps to try to fix what he did. And with Republicans standing in the way, Democrats have every right in the world to yell at them for being irresponsible with money and doing the things that they're doing to American citizens and veterans. Okay, it's really their fault. So we shouldn't really allow them to get away with that kind of talk when they accuse Biden of spending a lot of money. Okay, these aren't frivolous expenditures. You know what I'm saying? They're not frivolous. These are strategic, cost-effective things that he's trying to get through the government in order to put the country back on its feet. Okay, and we have looming threats out there outside this country that we need to be ready for. Okay, China and Russia, and we can't be prepared to tackle on those two countries if we're in a weakened state like we are now. If we don't strengthen our government, strengthen our economy, strengthen its populace, okay, and invest in it, then we're going to be sadly surprised at how little we're going to be able to do when the time comes when other countries are going to look to us to help them defend their nations. Like Australia. Australia is right now is under the gun by China, and the people down there are worried. They don't, you know, the conversation there is always about China on the news because hey, they're just like a little hop away from them, northern Australia, and China's buying up all kinds of little islands off northern Australia and setting up bases there for their navy. That scares the shit out of the Australians because they think that China is preparing to make a move. Well, they're going to be looking to us to help them. You know, they're wondering what we're going to do if China decides they want to invade. So, you know, and then of course there's the issue with Taiwan, which is probably the first place they'll try to invade, because Taiwan is a good spot to build a bunch of ports for their navy and launch from there, you know. But like I said, if the United States is not strong, okay, and it's stronger than it was under Trump, but it still needs to have a long way to go, okay. We need to be prepared for these things, and they are coming, okay? They are coming. These things will come up. China's going to get brave. Russia's already showing what they're up to. And so we know that there's a movement out there aiming to grab what they can of the world, okay? Trying to get back to the way things were, you know, pre-20th century or whatever you want to call it, you know. They want to go back to those days. Why? I don't know. But the United States we shouldn't have to repeat mistakes of old, and we should be ready and learn from those periods, you know, in World War I and World War II. And the only reason we won those wars is because we outproduced all these countries, okay, that started to fight. And if we don't have any factories in the United States to build things when the time calls for it, we're going to be fucked, okay? And you see, that's the problem, is all of our factories left this country and went to Mexico, China, India. You know, that stuff's going to have to come back here now. Because if we're going to fight, you know, wars and stuff like that, we're going to need industry on our side. And we have to outproduce all these other countries in order to keep the fight up. Okay? That's how we win. That's how we win these things. So anyway, as far as the veterans go, they need to get their help, okay? How is that encouraging people to join the service when they see what they do to the people who survived the wars, okay? Don't you think that's just as important a visual as an ad to get people to join the military? When you see how these people come home and treated by the very military, the very government they swore to protect. You know, you don't see commercials about that on TV. You know, you aim high and all this stuff. You don't see any commercials on TV to try to help the veterans. You know, and the Republicans don't feel obligated to have to give a shit that they don't help the veterans. That's got to change too. So people in the Republican Party, if you don't like what they did yesterday, then you need to come out, call your politician, whoever that may be, and tell them you did wrong. Okay, you did the wrong thing. You know, if you want to turn this little tit for tat thing against the Democrats for the remainder of the time Biden's president, okay, just keep in mind that you got to pick your battles. You don't want to pick the fights that are going to hurt you in the long run. Okay, you got to be smarter than that. So basically, that's what I got to say to that. All right, let's go to a commercial break. Be right back.
Dear CEO, what's it gonna take for you to do something? Yeah, do you even care?
Climate change affects all of us. This is your chance to do something good.
Women with the least likelihood of getting pregnant are the ones most worried about having abortions.
Matt, you seem like a guy that enjoys spending time with a woman. So why are you so angry at them?
Nobody wants to impregnate you if you look like a thumb. I don't get it.
Are you mad because you have to pay for sex? Allegedly.
You're like 5'2", 350 pounds.
Man, stop.
It almost seems like you're trying to yell loud enough that no one will see you've been hiding something. What are you compensating for?
A few of them need to get up and march. Swing those arms. Get the blood pumping. Maybe mix in a salad.
But Matt, you don't have to yell that loudly. That secret you're so worried about people discovering, it's not big at all.
Herschel Walker has wanted to kill a lot of people, including himself.
You were playing Russian roulette.
Yes.
With the one bullet in the gun, and you
Yes.
put the gun to the side of your head?
Well, I put it to the side of my head, I put it in my mouth.
He held the gun to my temple and said he was going to blow my brains out.
He talks about thinking of murdering a man who was late delivering a car. All I could think was how satisfying it would feel to squeeze the trigger, the visceral enjoyment I'd get from seeing the small entry wound and the spray of brain tissue and blood like a 4th of July firework exploding behind him.
What's Herschel Walker gonna do with a gun next? Think about that, Georgia. Think real hard.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it.
It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. So another sort of a miracle took place, and this was about the gun problem here. And here's this article here that'll explain this for us, written by Lisa Mascaro and Kevin Freaking from the AP, entitled House Passes Bill Banning Certain Semi-Automatic Guns. The House has passed legislation to revive a ban on certain semi-automatic guns. Once banned in the U.S., the high-powered firearms are now widely blamed as the weapon of choice among young men responsible for many of the most devastating mass shootings. But Congress allowed the restrictions first put in place in 1994 on the manufacture and sale of the weapons to expire 10 years later, unable to muster the political support to counter the powerful gun lobby and reinstate the weapons ban. Speaker Nancy Pelosi pushed the vote toward passage in the Democratic-run House, saying the earlier ban, quote-unquote, saved lives. President Biden hailed the House vote, saying, quote, the majority of the American people agree with this common-sense action, unquote. He urged the Senate to, quote, move quickly to get this bill to my desk, unquote. However, it is likely to stall in the 50-50 Senate. The House legislation is shunned by Republicans, who dismissed it as an election year strategy by Democrats. Almost all Republicans voted against the House bill, which passed 217 to 213. The bill comes at a time of intensifying concerns about gun violence and shootings. The supermarket shooting in Buffalo, New York, massacre of school children in Uvalde, Texas, and the July 4th shooting of revelers in Highland Park, Illinois. Voters seem to be taking such election year votes seriously as Congress splits along party lines and lawmakers are forced to go on the record with their views. A recent vote to protect same-sex marriages from potential Supreme Court legal challenges won a surprising amount of bipartisan support. Biden was instrumental in helping secure the first semi-automatic weapons ban as a senator back in 1994. The Biden administration said that for 10 years while the ban was in place, mass shootings declined. Quote, when the ban expired in 2004, mass shootings tripled, unquote, the statement said. Republicans stood firmly against limits on ownership of the high-powered firearms during an, at times, emotional debate ahead of voting. Quote, it's a gun grab, pure and simple, unquote, said Representative Guy Reschenthaler, Republican from Pennsylvania. Andrew Clyde from Georgia, Republican, said, an armed America is a safe and free America, unquote. Democrats argued that the ban on the weapons makes sense, portraying Republicans as extreme and out of step with Americans. Representative Jim McGovern, Democrat, Massachusetts, says the weapons ban is not about taking away America's Second Amendment rights, but ensuring that children also have the right, quote, to not get shot in school, unquote. Pelosi displayed a poster of a gun company's advertisement for children's weapons, smaller versions that resemble the popular AR-15 rifles and are marketed with cartoon-like characters. Quote unquote, disgusting, she said. In one exchange, 2 Ohio lawmakers squared off. Quote, your freedom stops where mine begins, and that of my constituents begins, unquote. Democratic Representative Marcy Kaptur told Republican Representative Jim Jordan, quote, schools, shopping malls, grocery stores, Independence Day parades shouldn't be scenes of mass carnage and bloodshed, unquote. Jordan replied by inviting her to his congressional district to debate him on the Second Amendment, saying he believed most of his constituents, quote, probably agree with me and agree with the United States Constitution, unquote. The bill would make it unlawful to import, sell, or manufacture a long list of semi-automatic weapons. Judiciary Committee Chairman Representative Jerry Nadler, a Democrat from New York, said it includes an exemption that allows for the possession of existing semi-automatic guns. For nearly 20 years since the previous ban expired, Democrats had been reluctant to revisit the issue and confront the gun lobby, but voter opinions appear to be shifting, and Democrats dared to act before the fall election. The outcome will provide information for voters of where the candidates stand on the issue. Well, it's true. I mean, you know, I think what happened was Uvalde, Texas really poked a big hole in the Republicans' argument about good guys with guns. Okay? Because now whenever they bring up that, you know, that point of argument against banning weapons, people are just going to say, well, Uvalde, Texas, 2022, okay, where we had hundreds of good guys with guns on the ground that day, and just one bad guy with a gun. And that one bad guy, the gun, did all kinds of damage for 3 hours before they decided to get off their ass, stop harassing the parents of the victims inside the school, and go in there and stop the gunman. Okay? Does Republicans call that, you know, a balanced response to a gun crime? You know? I mean, it would have been better, you know, if they just didn't show up at all, I guess, maybe, and let the parents go in there and get the guy, because they had more guts than the police did to go in there. Instead, what we saw was a bunch of Republicans standing, shaking in their boots, armed with weapons, and not a damn one of them had the balls to use it. Okay, and that's what I've been saying for a long time about Republicans, especially those who belong to a militia and stuff like that. They talk big. Okay, they really do. They talk big. A lot of these guys, I mean, you look at them, they look like desk clerks or something, or somebody you would see, you know, doing, you know, pointless jobs everywhere. Okay, they look average. They don't look threatening. Okay, they're overweight, a lot of them, and they're lazy. Okay, and yet these guys show up at these friggin' militia meetings. Okay, carrying their guns, bringing their little kids there, giving their little kids guns, and they think they're badasses. Okay, well, they're not. Okay, you put any one of these guys, okay, in a critical situation, and they're going to fall apart in pieces. They're going to fumble around. They're not going to know how to use their gun. They're going to forget everything, and before you know it, they're dead. Okay, so you can't depend on these people to protect you. You can't depend on that guy with the gun to do the right thing. Okay, he's only going to respond in fear. Okay, when we, you know, these Republicans, especially the NRA, when they talk about having good guys with guns, they're talking about people who can handle the stress situation where they're up against somebody with a gun. Okay, how many Americans are, you know, constantly every day waking up, going out into a society where they're faced with a gun in their face all the time? You know, it doesn't happen as often as you think. Okay, it might happen in the schools, but that's not the same situation here. These people, okay, who want guns and stuff like that, don't have the experience to be able to use them in a standoff or a serious situation. They're going to react on emotion, and when cops do that, you see what happens when cops act on emotion. They do stupid things, and it gets them in trouble. These people don't have any training at all as policemen, and yet they're going to deliberately, because they have a gun, think they have all the courage in the world to stand up to somebody else who has a gun. Okay, and the fact is they won't be able to. They won't be able to. So the whole idea about good people with guns, okay, is bullshit. It doesn't work that way. Okay, I'm sorry, but humans don't all act in the same way when they're put into a dangerous situation. Some people will just freeze up and do nothing, and they'll get shot. Okay, or they panic and run. The gun's ain't gonna be there for them when they want it. They don't want to have to dig it out from some closet that's locked. Okay, they want it at their hand, but at the same time, they're too afraid to actually kill somebody. Okay, not everybody can kill a person. I mean, even in the military, we find that out. Not everybody in war is going to be able to do it. So, the idea of good people with guns was just proven to be a very flat and hollow argument, and it was proven in Uvalde, Texas this year. Okay, all the good people in the world with guns wouldn't go in there to stop this guy, or this kid rather. He was just a kid. They wouldn't go in there to stop him. So what good is that idea about arming the public? It isn't any good. So if the public's not going to utilize the gun to defend itself, then you might as well take them away. Take the guns away, because they're not going to use it. All right, they're not going to use the thing the way they're supposed to. You're better off getting rid of the gun, because when people aren't using the gun, it always ends up in the hands of somebody who shouldn't have it. Okay, and before you know it, you turn the TV on and the news shows people, dead bodies everywhere, in a school, out on the street, somewhere. Okay, because crazy people out there don't care about killing other people, and you can't match the insanity of a crazy person with a good person with a gun. The insane guy is going to win every time, because they don't have a conscience, and they're not afraid to pull that trigger, whereas a good person is going to hesitate. All right. So to avoid all these scenarios here, the best thing to do is to simply ban the gun, especially these high-powered rifles, which the public does not need. And when we ban those kind of weapons, we reduce the amount of deaths that we have every year from gun crimes. We're still going to have the gun crimes, okay? People are always going to find a way to get their hands on a gun. It may not be an automatic rifle, but it'll be a handgun or something other, you know, to do their crime. But at least they won't be able to bring down the numbers they've been bringing down with these AR-15s and stuff like that. It'll give people a fighting chance to survive and, you know, and to find cover in time before the bullets head their way. You know, as with the AR-15, you got only seconds, if that, okay? Before, I mean, by the time you see the guy aiming at you with the thing, it's too late. It's too late to even dive. I mean, that gun, that bullet, before you hit the ground, 30 bullets are going to have passed through you already and turned your guts into water. So, you know, there is no chance when someone's up against that, okay? It's a sad reality, but, you know, those kind of weapons, like I said, are only designed for one thing, and that's for war. And everyone who knows these rifles will say the same thing. It's not meant for hunting or just sport hunting or sport shooting or whatever the hell you want to call it, okay? It's not for fun. These things are not made for fun, which is really the only reason why these people want them, okay? I can't see how they'd be useful in a hunting situation, especially if you're in the woods. Things like that aren't really going to be that effective. Okay, but as you know, as was pointed out in the story, the Republicans are already corralling together to stop this thing from reaching Biden's desk. Okay, that's not that's no surprise there. Okay, and you know, these people, what do you say to Republicans that vote against something like this? Okay, what planet are they from? You know, what kind of reality do they want this country to be? I mean, I realize the reason is profit. Gun manufacturers don't want to lose their money. So you go to the gun manufacturers and say, look, if you want your damn money, why don't you sell your weapons to this country over here that's over there fighting right now, or some other country? Make your sales to them. Let them buy your fucking weapons, okay? Or don't make as many of them and just focus on these smaller weapons instead. Why do you have to make and sell these fucking automatic rifles for the civilians? Is it the military paying enough for your weapons? I mean, the military pays too much as it is just for a fucking hammer. They must be getting tons of money from the military for whatever weapons they're making them. So what's the point? Why does the civilians, why does America have to be the most heavily armed country in the world, okay, with 3 guns to every 1 person in this country? Okay, why, and only half the country has the gun. So that tells you, you know, we got people out there with more guns than they really could use in their lifetime, okay, at home or wherever. And they just want to keep buying more and more and more. That's why you got gun shows and stuff like that. People are always out buying these friggin' guns. And you go into their basements and it looks like you're inside of a friggin' weapons arm dealership at a terrorist rally or something. I mean, Jesus Christ. These people are insane. And in the middle of it all, they got a rebel flag hanging on the wall. So you see what I'm saying? That's not a picture of America that we really should cherish, okay? That's a picture of insanity in America and a problem this country has with fear dominating the minds of many people living here. And if you have to live that way because you don't feel safe, okay, then apparently you're acknowledging that we have a problem in this country with gun crime. So instead of living like that, living like you're inside of a compound, why don't you just fucking get behind these politicians and stand with them in banning these automatic rifles? Isn't that a better solution than living in fear every day, every night, 24/7? I mean, isn't that a better idea? Jesus, I mean, you could certainly cut back on the amount of damn bullets and guns you're buying all the time. Jesus, unless that's become a fetish for you, I mean, I realize there's people that are hoarders out there, okay? I mean, they made a whole damn TV series about that for season after season about hoarders. Maybe we got people out there in this country that are hoarders for guns. You know, they buy them and they just stack up into their apartments or their homes or something like that until they have more than they can handle, and they can't even get into their kitchens or in their bedrooms because they're all over the place. These people have problems, okay? And it goes beyond the guns. You know, it's a buying spend thing that they have a fetish for these things. You know, and to them it's guns that does it for them, okay? They love guns and they can't get enough of them. But guns are not toys. They're not things that you can play with or just idly have them around the house without any kind of security to protect them from people in case your house is ever broken into when you're not there. A person could back up a goddamn U-Haul and just walk out of your house with about 50, 60 fucking guns. And guess where that all ends up? On the black market everywhere, and people who shouldn't have them are getting them. You see my point? So, like I said, the idea that these Republicans are going to once again do the wrong thing, okay, and go on record doing the wrong thing, is showing, you know, that Republicans have no shame when it comes to playing the political game at the expense of the children and other people's lives out there. That to me is not politics. That's just terrorism on a political stage. That's what that is. They're deliberately trying to destroy society from the inside out. Okay, it ain't China that's doing it. It's not Russia that's doing it. Okay, it's not the Middle East that's doing it. It's the Republican Party that's doing it. They're the ones that are doing it. They're the people that are attacking our country. That's the danger from within. That's the part we have to rout out and box, you know, in some way out of the system. We can't let these people stay in there and do what they're doing. And we need to desperately stop voting these idiots in there, these extremist thinkers, you know, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, you know, and Lauren Boebert. People like that who don't belong in politics at all, who should be working a register at JCPenney or something, because that's where they look like they belong. People like that don't deserve to be sitting in the seat of power in Washington, D.C., because they don't know how to use it. They're only there to make sure that they get another term, and another term, or to move up further on the political ladder. It's all about money, making the money, okay? Whoever said there was money in government, it isn't. There is no money in government, but there is when you get lobbyists coming over there and stuffing your pants with their dollars and shit like that, okay? And so that's why they're there, because they're getting money. Any serious issues that people in their states have gets totally ignored. The only thing you're going to hear from people like, you know, like Green and Boebert are silly, goofy things, okay? Talking about Jewish space lasers and stuff like that. Nobody in their state had ever brought that up before until she said that, and now it's on the lips of so many QAnon members and stuff like that, okay? Those are people who create problems that aren't there, so that way they can fix the problems, okay? You know what I'm saying? And then they think they're succeeding at doing stuff when they're just, you know, it's like me taking a puzzle and shattering it and said, oh, look at this. Now I can fix it for you, okay? You know, I break the puzzle, now I'm going to fix it, and that looks like I'm doing something. Hey, I fixed this puzzle for you. Vote for me again. Okay, and this other story here from Huffington Post. This article here by Paige Lavender. It's entitled 12-Year-Old Fights West Virginia's Anti-Abortion Bill During a Public Hearing. 90 speakers had 45 seconds each to weigh in on the restrictive bill, which would make no exception for rape or incest. 90 people, including a 12-year-old girl, spoke about West Virginia's restrictive abortion bill during a public hearing on Wednesday. The state legislature considering House Bill 302, which would ban abortions in almost all cases, with limited exceptions for victims in rape or incest, thanks to the passage of an amendment on Wednesday, and allow for prosecution of physicians who perform abortions. Governor Justice asked the legislature to clarify and modernize the state's abortion regulations after a judge blocked an abortion ban from before Roe versus Wade. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, now the 12-year-old girl named Addison Gardner from Buffalo Middle School gave an impassioned remark against the bill, saying, quote, "I play for varsity volleyball and I run track. My education is very important to me, and I plan on doing great things in life. If a man decides that I am an object and does unspeakable, tragic things to me, am I, a child, supposed to carry and birth another child? Am I to put my body through the physical trauma of pregnancy? Am I to suffer the mental implications? A child who had no say in what was being done with my body? Some here say they are pro-life. What about my life? Does my life not matter to you?" And some of them spoke in support of the bill. Some employees and volunteers from the Women's Health Center, the state's only abortion clinic, appeared, as well as doctors, religious leaders, and more. Several speakers, including Women's Health Center Executive Director Katie Quinones, exceeded the 45-second time limit, continuing to speak as they were escorted out amid cheers. Quote, "I want you to explain to me why it would have been okay for me as a child to have carried my rapist's child. Explain it to me like I'm one of the children that you all are willing to traumatize." You know, it's true though. I mean, when you look at the people who could possibly be victims of rape, okay, or incest, or what have you, okay, especially when they're that young, you know, it's hard for even a 12-year-old to realize the depth and degree of problems that would happen after such a birth taking place. I mean, aside from the fact that they'd have to live with the trauma of having been raped, now they're going to have to spend the rest of their life being reminded of that rape when they look at their child, or when they, you know, whenever the people say, "Oh, is that your sister?" You know, or you know what I'm saying. There's all kinds of things that'll happen that it's going to constantly shame them. And why should a woman be shamed for being raped? That's not fair. Okay. I mean, is that what these Republicans want? Do they just want, you know, if you got raped, that's your fault, you got to be shamed, you know, for it? I mean, what is it with these people that they don't care, that they'll just simply do whatever the hell what the Bible tells them, or what they think the Bible tells them? Okay. You know, it's insane how these people come to these kind of beliefs and conclusions, except to say that, you know, from birth these people were probably beat over the head with this shit from some religious nut they had for a parent, okay? And now they live their life according to how they were raised, thinking that that's right, and forgetting the fact that in this country we're not supposed to subject people to misery because of something we believe in. That person has a right to live the way they believe, whether you like it or not, okay? And, you know, that's why we put laws in this country, to make sure that everybody is treated equally, all right? And that people all have the same opportunity to enjoy life the way we want to. And you can't enjoy life if some other people are putting their values ahead of yours, okay? Which they don't have a right to do. But unfortunately, I'm one of the few that see it that way, because people think this is a Christian country, which it's not supposed to be a Christian anything. It's not even supposed to be a religious anything. It's just supposed to be a country, okay? Because these people want it to be a religious country, they feel like that every other religion in this country should not even be here. And you know what that means? It's going to be like rounding up all the, you know, the outside religions and putting them on a boat or in a concentration camp or what have you, and exterminating them again, okay? And, you know, we're getting very close to that kind of reality in America, where people are hoping that they can do such a thing. I mean, we have groups of people in this country who, you know, white supremacists who simply believe that only white people should be in this country and everybody else out, okay? But who gets to decide who's white and who isn't? You know what I'm saying? You know, who gets to decide that? In their eyes, I mean, they think this, but they don't think it all the way through. You know, and what's the end result of a you know, after you do something like that? I mean, what do you think your country's going to become when you take it to the next level after that? Okay, it certainly ain't going to be a country that was founded on the piece of paper, you know, that was created by the founding people, you know, 200 years ago. It's not going to be like that. It's not going to resemble anything like that. So, you know, yes, we're a young country, but it's too soon for us to throw in the white flag and say, okay, it doesn't work, you know. Well, we've had 100 years of people making bad mistakes in Washington who've done a really terrible job of running our country. 100 years, okay? I'm including, I mean, I'm talking about the whole 20th century was a complete destructive waste to this country, okay? Some good things came out of it only because we had so many bad things that happened in it, okay? So we ruined this country for 100 years. And now the bill has come due and we have to pay it. And nobody wants to pay the bill. Instead, they want to double down on the mistakes they made in the 20th century and push it some more, okay? That's what they want to do. That's what Trump did in those 4 years he was president, when he walked out of the White House, okay, with having created a mess and a half in America that was enough to set us back, you know, decades, to start all over again, repeating the same fucking mistakes again, okay, that began before I was born up to today, okay? That's what he's setting into place. Whether he was aware of that or not, I don't know. But that's what he done. Because, I mean, this is an old school thinker, okay? He's a product of times that were very sickening to this country, all right? The way he thinks about government and stuff like that. He's an old fart that thinks like that from the old days. Cold War thinker, I guess you want to call it. He's stuck in a rut. A guy like that, you can't teach him new tricks because he won't learn. He doesn't want to carry. He thinks his ways are the right ways, and they're not. Okay? We learned that in that 100 years. All the mistakes we made, and we were trying to learn from them so we could correct the problem. Instead, these idiots get in our face again to stand in our way. Okay? They brought their wheelchairs and their fucking crutches and, you know, and their bad backs in front of us and said, no, we're not going to let you do this. You're not tearing it down. You know, just like what Putin is doing in Russia right now. Okay? Another relic of that century, puts himself back into the seat of power, okay? And now he's trying to bring Russia down and back into the Soviet Union. That's what he's doing. It's the old school trying to reclaim what they're losing right now, because the young people are moving in, all right, and they don't want to retread those grounds, okay? They don't. They saw their parents struggling through that. They don't want to repeat it, okay? But this is what's happening in the world today. We have people who are scared shitless of change, of things changing so far away from what they were used to having when they were growing up and stuff. They don't want to see that go away, okay? But that's only because they never took the time to learn from history and find out that much of the things that supported back in those days was very detrimental to this country, or to their country, whoever's country, to stability, okay? That a lot of people suffered, a lot of economies were crushed and ruined, all right? We went through a lot of wars and stuff like that, which, you know, we never really in some ways ever settled, okay? Especially like Vietnam. We won't even admit that we lost that war. We call, we abandoned the war. Oh, okay. Well, that's just another word for surrender. But you know what I'm saying? We have people that are going around trying to relive days because they feel like they need to be relived. That we have to go back and double down on what we was doing because that was the right thing at the time. Which makes me wonder how like our intelligence community, how upset are they that Russia's becoming the, you know, this USSR again, 2.0, you know, Russia 2.0. I mean, how upset are they that the Cold War is possibly coming back? Because remember, we still got a lot of old thinkers in government. They haven't gone away yet. There's still a lot of people who are really up in years, but they haven't let go of their jobs, and they're still there, and they're still interested in continuing on what ended during the 20th century and wish that didn't end and want to bring back, okay? It seems like our country isn't happy unless we're under the gun, or, you know what I'm saying, unless we're at war with somebody. We're not happy unless our military's out somewhere kicking the shit out of some country, because we've gotten used to that. You know, it's been embedded in us for the last 20 years, the time we spent in Afghanistan. You know, a whole generation of people grew up with our military constantly at war in Afghanistan, in the Middle East. So now that they're not at war, it's like they don't know what to do with themselves. So they need to have another war to keep the military busy. Because my father used to say, in peacetime, the war is a wasteful thing, because they don't know what to do with themselves in peacetime. So in order to be useful, there has to be a war going on somewhere for our military to be active in doing something with, you know. A lot of people don't agree with me with that, but you know, you look at history, and it just feels like that's the way this country is. We have to be at war all the fucking time. How many wars do we just have in 100 years? You know, Jesus. And in every single fucking war, we had people screaming their heads off, stop the war, peace, peace, stop the war, you know, go to the fucking table and discuss No. Instead, we had military generals that were out there clapping and applauding the war to go on and end, you know, and just take down the enemy and take down the country, you know. We had people who were just warmongers, and who in another country would have been dictators themselves if they were given the chance, okay? And that's the way our military has been, okay? And now, you know, where Biden pulled us out of Afghanistan, and the military bitching and complaining that he did, it's like, well, Christ, you think they would have been happy and applauding? You think the country would have been celebrating like they did at, you know, at the end of World War II, where you go down New York and the place was 3 feet deep in goddamn confetti when the war ended. Didn't happen. Nobody in this country wants peace. I mean, I feel like everybody wants war to go on, you know. So that way, you know, I mean, they give people, as veterans, you know, they give them accolades and stuff of, oh, thank you for your service and all that, but at the same time, we don't want to pay for your health care. You know, I mean, you signed up, it's your fault, you know, you got hurt over there, you know, that's your problem, not ours. But thank you for your service. You know, and that's kind of the way the Republicans look at it, you know. There shouldn't be a VA system. The government shouldn't pay for these people's health problem. You know, even though the military was largely responsible for them getting sick in the first place. All right. This was something that's not new to the military. They've done it before, you know, in other wars, you know, like Agent Orange, and now, you know, in burn pits and stuff. I mean, this is not new, where they try to hide from their responsibility of causing so many veterans their lives. I mean, isn't this what they did to the first responders after 9/11? They didn't want to help them out either after they were down there breathing in these toxic fumes and asbestos and all that shit, and coming out of there with lung cancer and throat cancer and every damn cancer you could think of. No, the government didn't want to hear from them from that, even though we were all patriotic when it happened. Again, we were throwing them under the bus after they came to us and said, can you help us out? No. So this is how we pay for other people's service to our country in America, and yet we still want wars to go on. You know, our country's so sick. I mean, the way it thinks, and the people, you know, those people living in it who think that way are also very sick, and they're a danger to our country. And that's the reason why the rest of us have to always be involved in politics, to stop folks like that from wiggling their way into power by some means, like the Lauren Boeberts and the Marjorie Taylor Greens, okay? People like that should not have made it into politics. They should have been kept out of it with good voters. But those good voters didn't vote to stop that from happening, and now we're stuck with these imbeciles in there tearing the country apart. And how much longer is it going to take to repair the damage they do after they're no longer able to return to their seats, you know? All right, so that's it for today, and I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. Please subscribe and comment, and keep your ears open on local COVID-19 news and the monkeys virus that's out there, whatever the hell they call it. I can't think of it now, but yeah, keep your ear open to that, because it seems like that's spreading even more now than it did before. So yeah, watch out for that, and register and vote, people. It's coming up 3 short months from now. We're going to be out there voting. So here's your chance to get out en masse and flood the electorate with Democrat votes. Okay, let the Republicans learn for a second time that we still outnumber them. And you know, I promise you that even with the redistricting efforts that they've been doing, they're going to find victory even harder to achieve once so many of us come out and play our game, okay? And that's what we got to do. So treat each other nice out there, okay? Be nice to other people. No more Karens, okay? Please put a stop to that, because that's the reason why our airline industry is so screwed up these days, is because of people who didn't want to wear a mask on a plane and stood up and fought and bit and kicked and screamed and cried, okay? All right, so enough of that, okay? Act your age. So I'll talk to you guys later, so take care.